So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Living Well group session today, this beautiful Wednesday morning. And it truly is a beautiful Wednesday because we are so honored to have with us today William Shotton. Now, William is a food process engineer and a microbiologist, and through his own health journey has truly come to understand the importance of fermented foods. And he founded, on the basis of this, he founded the Tipico Fermentary. So, William, over to you. We'd love to hear more from you, more about your journey, any insights you are willing to share. We're going to have lots of questions for you, but I think let's just start by hearing your story, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody, and it's a real privilege to be contacted and asked to be involved in one of these presentations. I do go on a lot, so excuse the drivel because I get very passionate about the subject which I study and am involved in. If I wind the clock back actually quite a long way, I studied food process engineering and food technology. I was with Nestle for a period of 13 years. Rising to general manager, and I was in charge of all European coffee operations. The technology, what goes on in the food industry is actually quite phenomenal. It always brings me to that sad situation that there's a world, we've got all these wonderful technologies, but we actually we still can't learn to live with each other. But I progressed from that more into central management, and over the next 20 years, I ran 3 public companies. One of them was an Australian-American organization, and was very, very passionate about business. Behind that, I've always remained what I thought was healthy. And that I got myself to a stage in the in 2015 where I was starting up a new venture in Liverpool. It was sapping a huge amount of time. It was sapping a huge amount of emotional energy out of me, and got to a stage whereby I thought I was fit. I was going to the gym 3 times a week. I was cycling. I was doing my spin classes. I was doing weight training. I thought I was eating good food. And that my daughter said to me one lunchtime, she was working for the company. She said, Dad, she said, your eyes are actually bleeding. There's actually blood coming out of the tear ducts and down your face. So they rushed me into hospital for tests, and they had never ever seen a blood pressure over 200. And they said, well, you must have been reasonably fit because at your age, your aorta would have split and you would have had an embolism. But they managed to get my blood pressure down, do more tests, and found that I was diagnosed with a carcinoma in situ of the esophagus. That was a life-changing moment, because if it wasn't for the blood pressure, they wouldn't have actually diagnosed the carcinoma as so early within its stages of growth. So in essence, it's classified as cancer stage 0 almost, but it's on the way. I was offered various treatments by the hospital, private hospital, the Spire hospitals in Liverpool, and I refused them all because I needed to understand. I have been all my life just fascinated in trying to find. I have to learn something before I can commit to it. And I started reading more and more and more about natural health, about solutions, and everything really came down to the cause and not the effect. And generally, it's so easy for the health specialists around us to be able to diagnose tablets and pills to keep pharma going, whilst we're not really addressing some of the fundamental problems. I read 2 books. The first book, which was the inspiration to me completely changing course in my life, was I read the book How Not to Die. And this just totally opened my mind up to really the power of plant-based foods. The Dr. Greger, who is the author, I also read the China Study, which is the most boring book I've ever read in my life. It's about 700 pages of just facts and figures. But the China Study started in the late 70s, and it studied the Chinese health population, or the health of the population over a period of the last 30, 40, 50 years, to find that from a nation out. Why did they choose China? Because China has got the lowest ethnic populations in the world. So predominantly, the generations and the ancestry of China has remained in one place for centuries, and they had proven over a period of 40 years that with the commercialization of China, the movement of people from peasant foods and peasant lifestyles into working in towns and cities in industrial complexes, that they have gone from an almost 1 billion people without cancer to the fastest growing nation in the world, which has got cancer and cancer-related issues and also lifestyle illnesses. But I got in touch with Dr. Greger eventually. He replied to one of my 30, 40 emails, and I managed to get a telephone conversation with him. And he said, I don't really understand. I don't know anything about you other than all I can recommend is fermented foods. And that if you start eating sauerkraut, live sauerkraut for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner, and if you wake up in the middle of the night, have another mouthful, it certainly won't do you any harm. And also, if you have the milk cfes, which are very, very powerful in their probiotic content, then I'm sure that it will do you good. I am not exaggerating when I say that I felt the difference in under a week in something going on, which I couldn't put my finger on. It wasn't a cure, but something was actually changing inside of me. And that was without doubt the impact of a combination of probiotics going into me and prebiotics feeding those bacteria, which then have resided in my gut. And it was quite scary. I then registered and studied to do a master's at Cornell online and a little bit sort of in classroom in the States, and then really started to study functional nutrition. And every corner which I turned, there was somebody trying to sell something. They were trying to sell supplements. They were trying to sell additives. They were trying to sell all sorts of things to be able to get on the bandwagon of this new subject called gut health. I went in a complete different direction, and that I, in studying more and more and more myself, but also on people who had got gut health issues, it was starting to then really understand and absorb the power of bacteria that exist in us and on us. And when we now talk about the second brain, it really is a second brain. And certainly it's now classified by new medicine or new science as probably the most important organ after the brain in the body. Because down there, the kingdom of your microbiome in a healthy person is probably round about 3 kilos, 7-pound ball of just bacteria by weight, and probably upwards towards 50 trillion bacteria of 1,000 different species, which have evolved to live in us and on us, and in other animals as well. But these have been around for a lot longer than certainly we as Homo sapiens have been on Earth. And they live symbiotically with us. So they're dependent on us to be fed and watered, and in return, they do a multitude of things to our bodies, looking after everything from energy balance, looking after the internal condition of the gut wall, looking after our mental health, looking after hormone balance, and also managing, and actually when I say managing the immune system. I'll come back to the immune system a little bit later. So I started making my own sauerkrauts, and could tell the difference between homemade and shop-bought. Most of the shop-bought sauerkrauts that exist have been pasteurized. That's why they're all on the shelf, because the food companies or the supermarkets certainly want to have much longer shelf lives. So they're really just selling you some cold cabbage, as it were, but of no real benefit. Even the likes of the buy owners who promote organic and promote all sorts of things, if it's on the shelf, leave it alone, because it's a complete and utter waste of money. If it's not in the fridge, then it's a waste of money. So you've got to be looking into the fridges. And again, with the microbiology side of me, is that in starting to analyze and look at most of the products like yogurts, they're either packed with sugar or they're actually pasteurized. And I think there's only probably 2 yogurts in the whole of the UK supermarket, unless you go for very small producers, which are actually classified as live. So I became extremely interested and very cynical, having gone back then 6 months later to the Spire Hospital, had another endoscope, and they wouldn't really accept whatsoever that the polyps within my esophagus had started to regress, and that even in some areas, the scar tissue had started to disappear. Nevertheless, I was feeling a very, very different person, internally as well as externally. A number of other traumas had hit me all at the same time because of the health and the problems which I had in Liverpool, which really took me down a road of into a very, very dark place for a period of about sort of a year, by which it was only my passion now for understanding the power of plant-based food that really kept me driven. And I was making my own milk kefirs, but I wanted then all of a sudden to be able to commercialize something, to be able to make a living out of it. And I started making water kefirs the way that, if you look on Instagram, if you look on the Pinterest, is that, you can get some grains, you can put some sugary water into it, and if you drink this on a regular basis, it will do you a lot of good. Yes, it will. But what I actually couldn't understand was the illogical side of these types of products, together with what a lot of other companies are promoting and selling, that if you've got something on the kitchen work surface, or if you've actually got something which is in big vats like kombuchas, which have got warm air bubbling through them on a continuous basis, then the bacterial profile which are being produced by a lot of these products is aerobic. Aerobic meaning that I'm a bacteria and I need air to live, just like we do. But deep down inside of our guts, there ain't any air. And therefore, how can you produce something, call it a probiotic, say that it's got 30 million, 50 million bacteria per spoonful, or whatever these companies say? Well, to find that the second that they actually disappear down into the gut, they are throttled because they've got nothing to live on. So I started then developing a very small process. It was a very small batch process which took over most of the kitchen. And what I was doing was then fermenting fresh fruits. And at the same time as that fermentation process was taking place, I was then introducing and bubbling through all the small pots and vats, carbon dioxide to be able to exclude air at all times from the whole of the process. Having the product then analyzed, it was found that what I was achieving was an extremely potent bacterial profile of anaerobes, which can go straight into the gut and really do what nature and evolution has generated them to do. So that we then started to move from the kitchen table to working, because I had a small job at the same time, working nights in the garage, having had the garage all whitewashed and sealed and approved by the local health constabulary, and we started making it and selling it to more friends and family and people who became interested. To then find that other people were coming back and saying, wow, I can really feel the difference. I've had IBS. I've got a lot of acid reflux, which has literally disappeared within sort of a couple of days. And I thought, wow, we've really got something here, which made me turn from something which I thought was extremely interesting into something which I've just become obsessed about. And learning more about the bacteria and what the function and the role of these bacteria is within your body. And the real bits that really fascinate me is there is an estimated about 30 white papers a week worldwide now being released on the power of bacteria in the body. Not only our bodies, but certainly in the likes of pregnant women, where the microbiome, which is actually passed from mother to baby, that the health of the mother is absolutely critical to the actual health of the baby when it's born. And there is a lot of new science and research going into how ADHD and some of these other mental issues is all really down to the mother and actually not the child, because the child's being actually born with a microbiome which is depleted of good bacteria. And at the same time, the bad bacteria are completely dependent on the sugar and the simple carbohydrates, which are a function of which are all around us all the time now. So I then just took this on board We then moved to, we took over a section of a farm, where we're still based at Brampton Abbots in the Wye Valley. And we have grown immensely over the last 2 years. And we've continued to grow the business at about 20% a month. We have now got into producing our own krauts. It's not a sauerkraut, it's a kraut. And that I was very driven to try and create something which was different. Why are our krauts different? If you look at the sauerkrauts, which have been made over thousands of years, predominantly for the preservation of food, but also being aware of the health benefits throughout Eastern Europe and across Caucasus and into Russia, is that the cabbages and the other vegetables have been preserved. So under communism, you get your dacha, you get your apartment, and the family goes out and they grow all the vegetables during the summer, and then they pickle them or ferment them and keep them going in the winter. And that was a perfect circle, which doesn't exist anymore. But I wanted to create something which was different. And so what we produce is a kefir kraut. And that what we do is that we select our vegetables, we get them predominantly from local farms. We process the vegetables exactly the same way as you would do in a traditional way, in a traditional process. But the first different ingredient that we add, and we found to be a lot more effective in the process, is Celtic sea salts. So instead of sodium chloride, the common salts, which 90% of people use for commercial reasons because it's cheap, but it's also got aluminium in it to be able to help it flow, and other additives to be able to help it flow in its production processes. And so people then talk about salt content, and what you're getting is salt sodium chloride. With the Celtic sea salts is that Celtic sea salts are known to have 84 rare minerals, trace minerals and elements within them. And therefore we are populating our krauts with a multitude of very, very important trace minerals to the body. And we've noticed a difference in the actual performance of the fermentation process. But instead of allowing the natural airborne bacteria, which are on the surfaces of the vegetables which are fermented, we don't rely upon this. We actually seed it with our own cultures. And the reasons why we seed it with those cultures is because our cultures have been in vats anaerobically growing for a period of time. So we're actually seeding it with the stuff that's really good for your body. It speeds up the fermentation process from months to, probably from 6 months down to about 2 months. But what we are doing is producing a ferment which is very different in flavor and experience, and the prebiotic and probiotic content to anything else, anything at all, which is shop bought. There's nothing like what we do. So that what we then have within all of our krauts is that if you look at our competition first, is that there is a predominance of what's called acetobacter acetic acid, and that's why an airborne or an aerobe with acetobacter produces acetic acid or vinegar. That's why kombuchas are vinegarish. That's why a lot of sauerkrauts are vinegarish. Ours is different. So we're populating with lactic acid producing bacteria. So lactobacilluses are in predominance. together with bifidobacteriums and leuconostocs, which are so good for your body. And that we're producing lactic acids and folic acids as opposed to acetic acids. So what we then end up with is although the acidity, the pH, is safe and very low, is that the type of acid is what the body actually really needs. And lactic acid and folic acid are massively helpful, especially with women's health, yeast infections, and for hormone balance within the body. So we really are hitting a sweet spot. What we're trying to do now, so we've got 6 water kefirs, and all of our water kefirs we are the only company who I know of in the world that actually ferments fruit. So we don't do a primary ferment and then add, like our competitors do, some flavorings. They call them natural flavorings. There isn't such a thing as a natural flavoring. They're all produced within laboratories, and certainly the ones that I've ordered and tested have all got dilute X amount of parts per water, as these are carcinogenic in their raw state. So flavorings, we have no flavorings, we have no colorings, we have no sweeteners. And that what we're doing is that the bacteria are living very much on the sugar which is within the fruit, which we actually ferment. So you're getting the benefits of a fantastic fruit juice, but with no sugar. So you're getting all the vitamins, you're getting all the minerals, you're getting all the phytochemicals, you're getting all the antioxidants, but you're not getting the sugar, because as people have seen very recently, and there's so many programs promoted on the TV on how to live well, et cetera, that there is more sugar in fruit juice than there actually is in a Coca-Cola. And the problem with sugary drinks is that they get into your system really fast. And that's why you get the sugar spikes, which then pulls the insulin out into your body, and then you've got a complete imbalance. The net result of that is that you're craving sugar another couple of hours later, and on the cycle goes.
This is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, William. There's some burning questions, if that's okay. People are desperate to know, what are the 2 brands of the live yogurt that's actually effective?
Yeo and Oaken.
Yeo. So that's the Yeo Valley one.
Yeah.
Natural.
Yes, they are very good.
And the Oaken.
And the Oaken ones, yeah. Okay. But the rest of them, just look at the ingredients on the back. There was a very interesting podcast done at the weekend. Who's the Stephen Bartlett, his podcast, and he was interviewing Chris. Is it Van Halen?
Van Tuliken.
Van Tuliken is one of the twins. Mm. And of course, he's absolutely down the throats of all the food companies about ultra processed foods at present, and he doesn't care who he upsets. But one of the things that he has really promoted through his book is to be able to say, don't stop eating processed food. It's the same way as when you're told to stop smoking. He said the thing to do is to continue to eat your ultra-processed foods, but as you're eating it, read the ingredients at all times. And psychologically, you'll actually be told, and you're telling yourself the absolute rubbish that you're eating and the chemicals which are going into your body.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And a lot of us here in the community are we're in a reset phase where we're resetting our taste buds. We're coming off all the processed sugars. So we're feeling very virtuous listening to this right now. Am I right? So there were a couple of questions. Can I just read them out to you? So I was having one lady saying I was having Chuckling Goat milk kefir and their prebiotics, but a nutritionist told me I had enough fermentation in my gut. Got a history of gut dysbiosis and massive bloating, and she told me to stop all fermented foods. And the prebiotics have inulin and sugar to cut out all sugar.
Interesting. It's interesting. I don't know where the motivation became or is behind the answer. Chuckling Goat are an excellent company, and they produce a goat kefir and products that do what they say on the tin or on the bottle. We are predominantly all plant-based. We are very much vegan. We're into animal cruelty, and that just like a cow that's got to give birth every single year to be able to then keep it producing milk, and the calf is then just taken away to a slaughterhouse, before it's even sort of really met its mother. The same thing happens to goats as well. They've got to have the same treatment. So ethically, I have taken the business very much down the vegan route, and we would have nothing to do with a product like that. One, it has a small amount of lactose, but it's the actual cruelty that exists within the actual supply chain.
Yeah, of course. And it is possible for someone to have an abundance of fermentative bacteria within their gut. So that is where
it isn't. You can't have an abundance of bacteria in your gut, because your gut is full of bacteria. Your gut is actually 60% bacteria. But
an imbalance, and we know sometimes with clients, for example, with a histamine intolerance, that they don't get on well with, for example, fermented foods or probiotic foods. We have to go a slightly different route with that.
I agree with you there, and that certainly histamine is produced within fermentation.
Yeah.
But histamine again is an intolerance.
Yes.
And that if you then go look at some of the various papers that exist, which are promoted by Tim Spector, and I can't pronounce his name. He's actually part of the Zoe team. It's a itch, but he's got the fiber.
He looks like she knows.
He's got the books, the fiber fuel books, and he has chapters dedicated to histamine. And what he really promotes is eating small amounts to actually get your body used to. So wean yourself off it. Don't start avoiding it, because you'll actually end up with more problems than you had in the first place. But the body is a very clever thing, and the bacteria are even more clever. And so you can't have, unless you've got the likes of histamine intolerances, that your body will dispel on a regular basis. 60% by weight of your stool is actually dead bacteria or bacteria which are not required anymore. And so they're getting replenished and need to replenish and multiply on a regular basis.
Okay. Jennifer's asking, so flaxseed with biocultures are no good?
Flaxseed's another big question mark. Is that flaxseed's great. It's got a lot of stuff inside of it. You've got to get inside of it.
I think she's referring to the ground flax seeds.
Okay.
So Linwoods, for example, do this. I know exactly what she's referring to because I've often bought it myself. Linwoods, and you pay a little bit extra because you go for the one with the biocultures.
Yeah.
So she's just saying, because it's not refrigerated, it's in a vacuum sealed pack. Is that meaningful? Is that relevant? Is it worth the extra money?
Yes, it's worth the extra money. Yes, it's relevant, and it's a company who I'd respect immensely. The one thing about seeds, which we've got to be very, very mindful, is the content of lectins.
Mm.
And there are a lot of people continuing to shy away from lectins. Gluten is a lectin, but lectins are in far, far higher predominance within seeds and nuts and your lentils and your beans than they certainly are in the gluten in bread, and even more damaging.
Yeah. Okay. That's a whole.
It's another subject altogether.
A whole other subject, isn't it? So Susan's saying Tipico website is amazing. So just for anyone who's listening and can't see the chat later, the website is tipicohealth.com. And William has very, very kindly given us a discount code, which is Claudia20. So you can get 20%. I'm going to be ordering the krauts for sure. So Mandy's saying, I tested fructose intolerant and have IBS, massive bloating. Would these fruit water kefirs be suitable? Just looked at the reviews and they're very good.
Yes, it will. It does. And the Trustpilot reviews are, everyone that comes through, we read, and that they bring tears to my eyes because we've actually just helped somebody. It's quite, and people who genuinely will say, I've been on tablets, or I've been on antacids, I've been on this, that, and the other for the last 20, 30 years, and I've stopped. You just think, I'm not in this business to be a millionaire and to make money. I'm in the business to be able to help people and to try and provide educational platforms to our customers. Where we are going as a company over the next 6 months is that we are entering into a joint venture with InVivo. InVivo are what I would classify as the top microbiome specialists within the UK, to be able to offer full stool analysis, deep down analysis. But that'll be done by a range of consultants who'll be working with us to be able to then produce dietary requirements and dietary helps to people who don't understand. We a lot of our clients, thousands of our customers, they want to repair their system, but they're caught between, I've been taking drugs, and secondly, I don't really know how to eat properly. And there's a lot of people out there who really do not know how to eat properly. And eating properly is probably the cheapest food that you can buy if you just know how to actually then convert it into something which has come out of the ground and make it edible.
That's so interesting. And talking about that, Susan's saying, I make my own kefir from grains, usually milk. Is it not actually doing my gut any good? The grains themselves, she says the grains themselves reproduce rapidly.
Yeah. They will produce. They'll probably every couple of days they'll double their volumes. You're not doing yourself any harm whatsoever, other than you're still taking in lactose, and at the same time the profile of bacteria will be very different from something which is actually being managed, or the process is being managed to be anaerobic. So you will get a lot of benefit from making your own milk kefir. Yes, you will.
And we were talking earlier before we went live about all the pasteurized options. People think you're buying like Captain Kombucha and all these massive brands, but actually it is kombucha, but it's not live. Doesn't have any bacteria.
No, I was in Holland Barrett yesterday looking at all the various products which they've got on the shelf, but not in the fridge. No. And so if they were kept on the shelf, they'd be decorating the ceilings.
Yeah. One lady's saying, I avoid kombucha and any fizzy water drinks because they make me burp so much. Is there any way to avoid this?
No.
Okay.
No. The predominance of kombuchas are artificially carbonated. They're not carbonated with the soda additives that you get in fizzy pop, but they are still force carbonated. So you'll drink them, and then when it gets into the gut, it'll then just give up all of its gas, and then it will cause you to burp a little or a lot.
Thank you so much. Lee and Jen, did you have any questions you wanted to ask particularly about people asking how much sauerkraut, how much kraut should they be eating?
That's a good question. Where we recommend for people who have got ailments, gut ailments, and they want to repair or restore something, we encourage them to drink about half a bottle, half a large bottle. So that's about 250 milliliters first thing on a morning before they have anything to eat.
Sorry, William, is that the kefir, the water kefir?
The water kefir, yeah.
And how much kraut should they be?
I would incorporate it as much as you can in a staple diet, and that if people are after ideas to be able to use kraut, just go onto Pinterest. It's no point in us being able to produce lots and lots of different recipes. Go onto Pinterest and just say recipes with sauerkraut, and you'll get hundreds of ideas.
It'd be lovely.
But there is a regular discussion that goes on between, oh yes, but you ingest these products, and the second that they actually get into the stomach's got to do what the stomach was designed to do, i.e., it's full of hydrochloric acid, and it's got a pH of about 2. So if you take stomach acid and then just wipe a little bit on your face, it'll strip the skin off it. So you can feel, if you have a acid reflux, you know how painful it can actually be. So we would always encourage to get the real benefits of a product is that during the night, your stomach will probably go from a capacity of this down to a capacity of that. It will shrink immensely. And that it's empty on the morning. If you drink your water kefirs, our Tipico products, at that first thing in the morning, then your stomach will be empty. There'll be no acid in it at all, and it'll then just flush straight through into your gut. So that's the benefits of it.
Gosh, that's so interesting. So that's probably a really good time of day to take your probiotic supplements as well.
Always.
I always take them before at night because I always feel the bacteria come alive when we're sleeping. They really...
And that is the prime time. The secondary time would then be on an evening, a couple of hours after you've eaten.
Yeah. That's what I always...
And just let it... I know people who just swear by it now because it really helps with their sleep patterns.
Oh my gosh.
There was one thing which I wanted to, because I'm really passionate about it, talk about it, and then I'll shut up. But
fascinated.
Is the impact of the foods we eat on leaky gut, and that in my opinion, is that we are steering, or the industries that support us are steering away from leaky gut as much as they possibly can, and that we have to imagine that our gut wall is, and I call it, one cell thin. It's not one cell thick. And the body has to replenish it every 3 to 4 days. So the complexity going on inside of us to be able to change over and replace that one cell every 3 to 4 days is a pretty tricky process in anybody's world. And that a lot of the foods which we eat, which are the high insoluble fibers, and especially the lectins, which are in a lot of the legumes which we eat, the skins of tomatoes, aubergines, those types of products, is that they contain this lectin molecule, which is so aggressive towards the actual stomach lining, towards the gut lining. And these things do tear, and that's why it's so important in a balanced body to be able to have as much soluble fiber or a good amount of soluble fiber, because the bacteria within a healthy gut produce two very striking short chain fatty acids. One is folate and the other one is butyrate. Butyrate is like nature's sticking plaster. It's like aloe vera is if you put it on your skin. Is that and that the butyrate will help actually repair the lining of the gut, and that there is a study which has been done by it's in the States. He's a gastroenterologist and heart surgeon. Professor, is it Lundy? I read his books, the paradox. The plant paradox, of which he really promotes. Anything which is butyrate forming. But the second that that gut wall, that one cell is compromised, you've got endotoxins going into the actual bloodstream. Yeah. And the endotoxins, the very, very first place those endotoxins go to is the brain. And they suppress the production of dopamine and serotonin. And in Sweden, they are doing a huge amount of work in terms of research and analysis, which is actually looking at depression in younger children who are on bad diets, who've got leaky guts and are obese, and the impact that it has on mental health. Mm-hmm. So the ADHDs that in Sweden, they are really, really focusing on is the cause of it. And they are virtually 100% putting it down to diet. And secondly, the diet of the mother as well prior to the actual the birth. Because what you have to imagine is that in our bodies, the white blood cells, which are our immunity, they are outnumbered by good bacteria by 200,000 to 1. And the bacteria have evolved to do jobs. And all of these bacteria communicate through what's called a mucosal lining. So they can send chemical signals to each other, not the way that we use a mobile phone. But what I'd like people to imagine is that if you have got a pathogen in your body, and that the white blood cell is outnumbered by 200,000 to 1. It's the role of the bacteria to find the pathogen and surround it and hold it, waiting for a white blood cell to be able to come and kill it off. Now, 80% of your immune system is based in the gut, and that's where you've got to, for good health, start to look. So if you imagine a 200,000 seater stadium full of people, 200,000 people. And in that stadium, you've got one terrorist and you have one security guard. How does the security guard find the terrorist? That's exactly what's going on in our bodies all the time, because 999 people who are the bacteria are all on the same WhatsApp group. And they will then find the terrorist and tell the security guard where to go. And that's exactly what's going on in our bodies all the time.
That's amazing. I love the analogy. That was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So Lee, did you want to ask anything in particular?
So I just was curious. So is there ever a case, do you think, Will, if someone does have dysbiosis, or maybe they are reactive to high FODMAP foods, or they have an irritable stomach, or like Mandy was saying, she was suggested not to have fermentable foods. What I heard you say, I think, is that you would introduce it in very small doses.
Yes.
And would that be more with the water kefir rather than a milk kefir?
I would stay away from milk, because then you've got lactose in it.
Okay, and is the lactose always a problem for people, do you think? Or is it very...
No. It's just cutting out those things which we don't need. I mean, sorry to say it, but it's been produced as the milk's been produced to feed baby cows, not to actually feed humans. We're the only people who continue through the rest of our lives to drink mammary milk. And as unpleasant as it may sound to a lot of people, that's a fact. And it's full of cow hormones, and it's full of all sorts of things. And I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. And have you got stories around how people with depression or anxiety are impacted by this gut dysregulation, who have taken your products and sort of felt a shift in that?
Without doubt. If you read our Trustpilot reviews, which we can't influence in any way, shape or form, and none of our competitors will certainly use Trustpilot, is that we would very much, there's people who've taken time out to write their stories on that, as opposed to oh, this is great, cool, thanks ever so much, 5 stars.
Yeah, fantastic. So really relevant to what we're doing in the Living Well Nurturing group, where there's we talk about a lot of self-esteem, anxiety, low moods, that kind of thing. So the connection between the two has been very helpful. So thank you, Will. There's still loads of questions coming in. I can see, Claudia.
But thank you, William. Just, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. We'll be ordering to give it a go. Sarah Jane saying such an interesting talk. Thank you so much. Teresa saying absolutely brilliant session. I mean, I've been talking on Goldster here, William, for 3 years. And, it's just a delight to have you on, affirming so much of what we've been saying. I was very interested at the beginning when you talked about the influence of the microbiome of our gut bacteria on hormonal health, on energy balance. Could you tell us a little bit more about the hormonal health?
I can't, only because I don't feel I'm qualified to do so. Okay. Other than we have a number of functional nutritionists who specialize predominantly in menopause. Have you heard of Trish Tucker-May?
No.
Well, I think she got Nutritionist of the Year a couple of years ago. But Trish is an absolute top expert in menopause and hormonal balance within the body. And she would do nothing other than recommend our products. They're the only ones that work.
Fantastic. So Stephanie's asked, there's a thought that autoimmune diseases are caused by leaky gut. Stephanie, this is what we're going to be talking about Nutrition Club today, by the way. So please come along. Would you agree, William?
Totally. 100%, not even 99.9.
And Gita said, can we only use the code once or more frequently? I think you're getting some repeats. Once you had a first time purchase, then you will automatically, when you register on the website, you'll get loyalty points as well. So you build up loyalty points, which ends up having the same benefits as the code which I've given you. People who, I write probably 2 emails which are health related a week, and we probably do quite a detailed blog once every couple of weeks. The last one being the types of fiber and how fiber really helps gut health. And there's some recipe tips and various other links there. I generally tend to cite a lot of white papers and research papers in my blogs, because I don't want people then saying, "Oh, well, what does he know?" And we use links to other sites as well. It's there as an educational platform. It's not there to be able to tell people that we know it all. Mm. But we're all passionate together. We're all learning together.
Exactly.
Is what it's saying. One question has come in. If you have a diagnosis of diverticulitis, can I naturally assume there's a leaky gut?
No.
I would, diverticulitis is in the colon rather than the small intestine.
Well, yes, but the leaky gut is leaky gut, but diverticulitis can be very much linked to it. And you'll probably go from diverticulitis, which has been untreated, towards leaky gut. Everything is compromising, and everything is compromising that one cell.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's often the lack of fiber with the diverticulitis. And then if there's lack of fiber, then there's probably the microbiome hasn't been as nourished as it could have been.
Exactly. Because you see, the another misnomer when I talk to and we work with sort of quite a lot of men, and they'll look at the pot belly and they'll look at the paunch and they'll say, "Oh, bought and paid for that, Well, it isn't bought and paid for at all. It's not a beer belly. A beer belly is not a beer belly, and that's where they get very, very confused. If you look at the majority of male people who have got that extended bloating and large belly, that what has happened or what is happening is that as soon as through leaky gut, your health is then compromised because you've got endotoxins now crossing into the bloodstream. The greatest area where the battle is being fought between your immunity, your white blood cells, and the endotoxins is in and around the gut. What then happens is white blood cells are the second largest consumer of energy in the body after the brain. So what happens is then the body then moves fat cells, as many fat cells as it can find, from parts of the body to the gut to be able to feed the actual white blood cells whilst they are in battle with the endotoxins. And that's why you get so much bloating. A lot of it is fat, but it's fat it's been sent there to do a job. So the bigger the beer belly, the bigger the inflammation.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very hard when you touch a belly. It can feel very tight, can't it?
It's not full of beer.
It's not full of beer, no. One quick last question, William. Can it help with Aspergillus fungus growing in the lungs?
I don't know. I really don't know. It would be very wrong for me to be able to say yes or no.
But there is a migration that happens of bacteria across the body. We know that it migrates to different places.
Yeah.
There's probably no evidence. We couldn't possibly say. But thank you so much. Jen, do you have any final comments here? And Lee?
Just absolutely fascinating, Will. I could listen to you all day. I'd like to go back now and watch the recording again. And I can think of so many people, particularly in my family, that I'd like to share this video with, who would really benefit from learning from you and buying some of your products. Amazing. Thank you.
But I also think that sort of the last things for me is that I'm not really trying to sell anything. We're not trying to sell a supplement. We're not trying to sell. We sell additives. We're trying to sell or convince people or educate people into a lifestyle change, and the pasteurization, the ferments which we produce, are just part of the journey. And that over the next year, our emphasis will be very, very much on what complements the actual ferments, because it's only part of the actual reconditioning of the body, and you've got to get back to diet.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, it's been a real joy talking to you, and thank you everyone who came from the Living Well group today, from the Nurturing Living Well group. Really interesting stuff. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And William, it's been great speaking to you, and we can't wait to try out your products now.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very kind of you.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.
If anybody wants to drop me through we've got an email on the website, which is support@tipicohealth.com. If anybody's got any personal questions or any advice that they want, they can just send them. And we'll try and get it within a couple of days.
Thank you, Will. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.